And welcome back to the Capitol Report. I'm Steve Lance. More than 24 Democratic-led states are suing the Trump administration, arguing that the federal food assistance program known as SNAP could lose its funding the beginning of November because of the ongoing shutdown. Joining us live to break down the legal and political implications are former Democratic presidential candidate and Together co-founder Jason Palmer, along with former Congressman Bob McEwen. It's great to have you both with us. Before we get to the questions, I want to hear a soundbite here from Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins.
USDA does not have the $9.2 billion that it would require. Even their own union, right? Even their own federal government employee union, I don't know the exact name, is urging their own Democratic leaders to open the government back up.
Congressman, help us understand this. The shutdown is caused by Congress not being able to pass the CR. Is the Trump administration at fault for the lack of SNAP funding?
No, it could be fixed tonight. The president could sign it before midnight if the Senate were just to agree to take the continued spending. Remember, this is the Biden budget passed last October, to continue the spending for another few days. It could certainly take care of all the needs for our air traffic controllers, the military, and for SNAP. It could all be done immediately. But the Democrats in the Senate recognize, it's been said over and over, that the Democrats in Congress say that they need leverage. And this is their leverage, is to be able to make these people suffer, because what is happening in December is that Obamacare, that totally fouled up the entire medical system. And because of COVID, they were able to make all these multi-billion-dollar adjustments in 2023 and 2024 and not 2025. And now as they're running out and the bills are about to come due, they know that they will have egg all over their face. And so what they're doing is shutting down the entire government in order to force the president to agree to funding for health care to continue the spending that we've seen in the past rather than reform it. In order to do that, many people have to suffer, and that's what we're experiencing here.
Jason, what's your take?
With all due respect to the congressman, because I greatly respect his service, this shows a lack of leadership on both sides of the aisle. President Trump has not been willing to meet with the Democratic leaders, and I think the congressman knows that there is a huge problem with Obamacare that needs to be fixed as well. People are seeing their premiums go up by 2 to 4 times because of this fix that needs to be done to the law that both sides actually agree needs to be fixed. And it's honestly a shame that our leaders have not been able to get together to come up with a very simple bipartisan compromise that provides food stamps to 42 million Americans and provides the right reduction in premiums to the 24 million Americans that receive Obamacare. More than half of these people are in Republican states. This is actually a dereliction of duty on both sides of the aisle.
Jason, I want to get your thoughts, though. What do you say to the argument that the Democrats are sort of breaking from precedent by wanting to stuff major policy into the continuing resolution? Is it the time and place for, fixing Obamacare?
It is the time to fix Obamacare because the premiums are going up right now. Honestly, the American public doesn't really care about the CR. They actually just care, are we fixing the things that are broken in our society and in our economy right now? And that's both the food stamps. Food stamps is a program that has 70% support among all Americans. This is $187 a month that goes to people who have severe food insecurity. A lot of these people are janitors, people who work at hotels, people who are hardworking Americans that make just the minimum wage or a little bit more than the minimum wage. And that's why most Americans think they should get their food stamps. Now, the secretary who was on screen a few minutes ago, she's right. They only have $5 billion in the rainy day fund, and they need $9.2 billion. But in a government that's running a $1.8 trillion deficit, like, this is a tiny amount of money. Leaders, get together, solve this problem, stop bickering.
Well, the unintended consequences and the ripple effects of this shutdown are now starting to kick in. We're starting to see it, whether it's with food stamps or, healthcare premiums. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy today, again, drawing attention to air traffic controllers that have been working without pay. Let's take a look.
I'll just note that in the Senate, a bill came up that said, okay, let the shutdown continue, but there's critical staff, critical workforce that come into work every single day, like air traffic controllers. Those workers who are coming to work, let's have a bill that pays them for the work they do. And Democrats said no to that.
Congressman, I know none of us have a crystal ball here, but you, being a member of Congress and knowing how the House chamber works, although the ball's not really in their court right now, where do you see this going? Are the Democrats just looking to break the record and we'll be back? Or do you see this going on for a potential extended period of time? And if so, what are the consequences that we're not seeing right now that we may actually see?
Well, it's strictly up to the leadership of the Democrats in the Congress. Everything that Jason said is absolutely true. And that is, but it could be fixed tomorrow. We don't have to shut everything down to consider these things about Obamacare. And the person that understands that is Schumer. And so when we crossed this Rubicon back in April, when they had the debt ceiling, that is, unless they had permission to borrow more money, they would have to shut it down. And he said, this is an unwise thing to do. This doesn't accomplish what we need to accomplish. And so he voted to keep it open. And the left came at him with guns a-blazing. They called him every name in the book. And so now he said, I'm not going to do this twice. So now when we run out of money, the continuing resolution, they haven't finished their job October 1st. They need another 5 or 6 weeks to do it. And they have this clean, they said, let's just keep spending at the rate that we were. He said, I'm not doing that again, brother. I'm going to join you guys and we're going to shut it down. And you asked the proper question. That is, how do you get out of this? And let me just tell you, there is no way out of this. This is a cul-de-sac. Every Republican, you talk about negotiating, why doesn't the president do it? Every Republican, has voted to keep it open. They voted to do it. And a handful, all we need is 5 more Democrats in the Senate. And it can be open tonight. It can be open tomorrow. So there's nothing Republicans can negotiate about. They want to have it open. The Democrats have to be willing in order to open it so that they can consider these things, the ramifications down the line. So they gave them little pieces. How about if we just do the military? They voted no. How about if we do air traffic controllers, as Secretary just said? They voted no. And so the ramifications are they are going to have to change their mind. They're going to have to crawl back down this tree. They're going to have to change 5 votes. It'll happen sometime. It's going to be every day that goes by will be harder for them. It's a mistake that they brought upon themselves and the country is suffering for.
Jason, help us take a look under the hood of the Democratic Party. Obviously, coming out of the election, a lot of things in flux, still trying to figure out who their leader is. There's a lot of talk that there's a schism, between the leaders, particularly Chuck Schumer and Jeffries, not between them, but putting them aside, and then with sort of the more progressive Democratic socialists in the party like AOC and Bernie Sanders, in that the leadership is doing things they wouldn't traditionally do in terms of holding out. Is that the case in your opinion? Talk to us about the dynamics within the Democratic Party right now.
The dynamics within the Democratic Party is that we're going through a reassessment of what the Democratic Party stands for, quite honestly. There are some people that are very supportive of Mondami in New York, and there are many people that think he is too much of a democratic socialist. But he does have a lot of support from people like Bernie Sanders and AOC. You're right, that is one wing of the party. There was a report that just came out yesterday, though, from sort of a center-left group that I believe in, a group called Welcome Pack, that actually focuses on what the Democrats should be focusing on, which is economic issues for working class people, which is, for example, SNAP, Obamacare. These are things that benefit millions of working class people. And I think this is a good place for Democrats to stand, actually. And now the congressman was saying there's no way out of this cul-de-sac. I actually think there's a very simple way out of this cul-de-sac. It would require the president to not be traveling in Japan, where he said he's willing to meet with Kim Jong-un from North Korea. He's willing to meet with pretty much any world leader out there, but he's not willing to meet with the Democratic leaders here in the U.S. All President Trump needs to do is have a little summit at the White House, bring the Democratic leaders, bring the Republican leaders together. And there are multiple bipartisan bills that have been proposed in Congress to actually reform Obamacare. Just pick one of those bills and then pass the CR with a bipartisan bill that actually reforms Obamacare. There are three of them that have been proposed in Congress. You could pick any one of those three. They already have Democratic and Republican co-sponsors. This doesn't need to keep going on. We need real leadership in Washington.
Jason, I'm running out of time, but I do want to get your thoughts just quickly. As a former Democratic presidential candidate based in California, it sounds like Governor Newsom, as of today, saying that he's exploring 2028. Is he going to be the right choice?
I actually have been very impressed with some of the things that Gavin Newsom has done in the last few months, including, speaking about how he doesn't think that there should be transgender athletes in women's sports was one thing that he spoke about. He's also, I think, handled things very well on a number of issues. But there are many other great candidates in the Democratic primary. When that gets going in 2 more years, it's going to be 20 people in that race, and a very interesting race indeed.
Congressman, I'll give you the last word, 15 seconds. Would the Republicans welcome a Gavin Newsom ticket?
I think they would, absolutely. And let me just conclude by saying that the president has been willing to meet with the Democrats. He did just before he left. He can do it any time. All they have to do is to come to the table with anything. The only thing they presented was a $1.5 trillion in new spending. Only $400 million of it went for Obamacare. They demanded all of this additional for people that are here illegally and LGBT in Central America and all these kinds of things. So whenever they're ready to just sit down, as every labor union and every Democratic supportive newspaper has said, agree to this limited continuing resolution, answer these things properly in the congressional halls, and let's move it forward. That can be done today.